Welcome in, everybody. We got John on the call. We got Astrodel, Ilya, Toad. What's up, everyone? And we do have our colleague Sandy, who is on the Opolis Twitter account today. And thank you, Sandy, for giving us that intro with the music. Yeah, looks like we got a full house here. So my name is Rachel, you guys. I'm a coalition success steward of Opolis. I want to start by thanking all of you for joining, thanking our speakers for participating today, and just sharing my excitement to highlight the Near ecosystem today and our partnership with Near Protocol. I have been really stoked on the project, really ever since I went to NearCon in Lisbon, and I've just been really impressed by the community and the positivity and love that I felt from people in this space. And I'm really just grateful to be here today, to have this opportunity to speak with Ilya, with Dennis. And I'll run through really quick and just introduce you all to our speakers today. So I'll start with myself. So I'm a coalition success steward of Opolis. And basically what I do is nurture these partnerships with different impactful projects. And every week we do partner AMAs, we do our Freelancer Friday calls, we do in-person event initiatives. I've helped to onboard ambassadors with our ambassador steward, Miguel. And we really just work every day to foster these connections in the Web3 space and to onboard new members to Opolis and help empower them to become self-sovereign. I'm also joined today by John Poller, who's the co-founder of Opolis and Ethereum Denver. I'm really excited to hear John speak today on our call. We're also joined by Ilya Polasukin, co-founder of Near Protocol, as well as Dennis Huisman, DevRel engineer at Near, and Jordan Gray of Astrodel. And we have a lot of exciting announcements today, you guys. Ways to get involved at Opolis, ways to earn at Opolis, and actually our bounty within the Near ecosystem. So Jordan has been a tremendous help with helping me get Opolis on the Astrodel platform and release our bounty. So today we'll be sharing a lot of resources for you guys. We have links for you to earn through our bounty, our learn and earn bounty. Basically, for those who qualify, if you fill out the form, you can learn about Opolis and earn Near. Without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to John, and we'll just go through the speakers and do introductions.
Thanks, Rachel. It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. We do have a lot of fun with these partner spotlights and building what we refer to as a community of communities here at Opolis. And for those of you that don't really know what the hell Opolis is, we are a employment DAO. You could call it a digital employment cooperative. You could call it a bunch of different things. But essentially what we've done is create a platform that allows individuals to unbundle themselves from typical corporate structures with still maintaining the same perks and benefits like healthcare insurance, retirement plans, tax simplification, reporting, all the compliance things that you need. And you also don't have to give up your valued independence. So it's really a new paradigm for employment and for serving what we refer to as the independent worker community in giving them what we also refer to as self-sovereign employment. So Ilya and I have been talking about a partnership for, probably a couple of years now. And it's great to be here and actually highlight and showcase some of the things that we're doing together to build the future of work together in the Near ecosystem.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. All right. We also have Jordan here from Astrodel. Jordan, if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and what you're doing over at Astrodel, take the mic.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, super excited for the space. Very briefly, AstroDAO is a no-code DAO launcher running on Near Protocol. And under the hood, it's got the Sputnik smart contracts that have been audited and are diamond hardened. And lately, we've been focusing on our bounty feed feature, which trims the time between when somebody learns about crypto and is able to earn with it. So it's just a feed of different work that you can do. When you pop onto astrodao.com, you can check out all the different bounties that are up. And we also have builder groups that get together on Tuesdays if you're interested in building DAOs. A few other links to share, but yeah, let's go.
And just to sing some praises to Astrodel, it was really easy to use that platform. It's very user friendly. If you want to spin up a DAO, it's just super simple, and that's something I want to touch on in this space today. Just how the near ecosystem and how near protocol is reducing the barrier of entry for those that want to get involved in Web3. And I think you guys have the simplicity aspect down, and very user friendly interface. So yeah, we'll move on to Toad. If you want to introduce yourself, we have one of our coalition success stewards up as a speaker.
Hey everybody, I'm sure I'll be speaking less today, so I'll catch you on the flip side. I'm just out here sporting my pulley today because, working together is really cool, especially when you're fighting for something that matters. And yeah, just out here working at Opolis on the day to the day. Really happy to have been to the Near event this weekend. And I feel like starting to understand like really where Near fits for the first time. I've done 10,000 something MetaMask transactions and realizing I can do like, the next 10,000 on Near protocol has been kind of fun. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I will kick it back over to our dear friend Rachel, or is it Ilya or Dennis that is up?
Yeah, we can pass it over to Ilya next. So, Ilya, you guys, the co-founder of Near Protocol. Ilya, we're super stoked to have you on the call today. Welcome.
Yeah, hey everyone. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here. Great to kind of see this coming together. As John mentioned, we've definitely been talking about this for a long time, and I'm a big kind of believer in the like this unbundling of work that's going to happen over next decade, where kind of instead of big companies, right, we're going to have a lot more smaller, nimbler teams that are kind of working across different aspects of problems and then coordinated in a more looser way through DAOs, through kind of on-chain mechanics, through some more contracts that are obviously not just enforced by code, but also by culture, but don't require kind of having this like rigid organizations that are currently being used. And so it's really cool to see, obviously, AstroDAO pushing a lot on that, and then Opolis kind of covering the other side with, connecting it to a real world, making sure people are taken care of, which obviously being one of the bigger challenges. So yeah, just excited to be here. Can answer questions around Near, but I'm sure the kind of AstroDAO and Opolis teams have a lot more to say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ilya. I do have some questions prepared today, but if you want to just go ahead and riff and get into some topics and just have more organic discussions, I'm open for either. I want
So I
to
think
give
there's
the mic
Dennis as
over.
well, right?
Sorry, what'd you say?
There's also Dennis.
Yes, so we have Dennis as well. I want to pass the mic over to him to do an introduction. I know he is an engineer over at Near. So Dennis, feel free to do an introduction.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm part of the DevRel team here at Near, and yeah, also very excited to be part of this chat. I think what we also have an additional to what Ilya said. I think we also have the opportunity to enable a new degree of transparency when it comes to work in Web3. Traditionally, in most industries, transparency around work and the terms of work is usually obfuscated from employees, and this can be a new era in which this is more transparent and verifiable, and there's no trust involved on the information you obtain. So this is some very exciting times ahead, and yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis. So it looks like we've gone through and done introductions. So I do have a couple questions and just talking points for us to get into today. So I guess we can start with Ilya. So just TLDR, what is Near Protocol for those listening today who are just learning about this for the first time? And maybe going from the high level ideology and getting into more focused functionality and operations of Near.
For sure, yeah. I think starting with ideology is important because, in a way, we started trying to solve our own problem. We were trying to build an application that can actually scale to, large amount of users and is a anybody ideally should be able to use it. And it was not clear that any of the kind of blockchains, and that was 2018, that were live or that were in development actually match those requirements. And so kind of philosophically, what we're trying to do is to, bring Web3 to 1 billion users, right? Like kind of, and that definition requires a lot of things to come together, meaning, we want people to have the ownership of their assets, right? We want people to own their data. We want people to be able to participate in governance, to structure their work in the way they want, to be able to have access to global markets, to not be, kind of under potential usurpation of whatever centralized party or government that is happen to happen around, right? And so kind of all of that requires something that is ideally simpler than Web2 to use. It's more secure than Web2 to use. It is able to scale to these billions of users. It's able to provide this ownership and governance to the users. And so kind of that's a philosophy. And so like we usually, formulate it as simple, secure, scalable, where simple really means, for both users and developers, this should be a simpler platform than any other platform, right? Not just Web3, but actually Web2 as well. It should be easier
Right.
to build here than on any other Web2 platform. And we're actually making some really cool strides on that and going to be rolling out some cool stuff. For users, this means it should be easier than, onboarding into a Web2 platform, right? Because they are centralized, they have set of requirements that Web3 platforms actually don't need. One of the really cool kind of features, just to mention, is called link drop, and now it's evolving into KeyPalm with KeyPalm team, is this idea that you can send somebody a link which allows them to, claim some funds or potentially even interact with the platform in kind of guest mode. That'd be AstroDAO or game or something else. And this is something that's actually impossible with centralized platform. You cannot send money to someone who doesn't yet have an account and didn't pass kind of some set of, KYC requirements. And so, and kind of those are kind of experiences that we want to enable, that indeed pushing the envelope of what's possible. Obviously, security, and kind of there's again multitude of thinking there, right? It needs to be secure from blockchain consensus side. It needs to be secure, meaning that users can feel secure about their holdings, their data, which is actually really hard. And having a very clear kind of set of recovery methods and how people can make sure they don't lose their accounts is important. And so, kind of doing a lot of work there. And obviously, scalability is something that everybody talks about, but most of the approaches have been really just let's tune a little bit the consensus or put a bigger machine, but kind of not fundamentally solving the problem. Or hey, you will have 50 chains that you'll need to deal with, and you as a user need to now figure out where things are. You have fees. You have stuff to pay fees. It's different tokens. You need a lemon coin to buy lemonade, kind of thing. And so, like, we're trying to solve all that, cohesively. And there's a set of obviously technical features like sharding that's solving the scalability. There's account model that allows to do all this kind of recovery, temporary accounts, pretty much passing down accounts, creating accounts for users, and then allowing them to rotate keys. Program accounts for specific behavior, all of the things, like a very flexible model. It's human readable, so it's very simple to users. And then we're using WebAssembly, which allows you to program pretty much in any language. So far we have Rust, obviously, JavaScript. People did some more esoteric languages like Zig. I think somebody tried Python already. You can do C++. You can, there's probably a compiler for almost everything. Not everything makes sense, but for people who want to try, there's kind of opportunity there. And obviously, just kind of the programming model is different to be able to scale, but then individual contracts end up being very simpler to build. And so that's kind of a combination of philosophy. How do we get to 1 billion users? It needs to be simple, secure, scalable, and then solving these problems with set of mechanics and tools underneath, and ideally hiding as much as possible, right? Like actually users don't even notice there is sharding in the network because it's fully hidden from them.
So it sounds like just a recurring theme that I'm hearing with Near is it's scalable, secure, it's easy for users. And I think that's really how we're going to achieve mass adoption is creating something that's simple, secure, and scalable. Um, so that's really awesome, Ilya. Thank you for sharing about the tech. And I also wanted to ask a little about, I know you have a background doing Google research. So how did your prior Web 2 experience lead you to Web 3 and to become a co-founder of Near Protocol?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, so my background is in AI. I worked in machine learning. I worked on that for about, I don't know, 10 years. And so when we started Near, it was actually Near AI, and it was trying to do what Copilot does right now, which is trying to kind of suggest how to write or like help people to write code. And ideally, we wanted to automate most of the software development. Now that was 2017. That was a bit early, and we didn't have $1 billion worth of compute to do that. But what we did was a very interesting data set because we built a crowdsourcing system that was having kind of students around the world interacting with it, solving problems, writing code, describing code. And so that generated really interesting data. And actually, I think some of the papers recently been citing some of that data as well. And so we end up having a problem just paying people. Like, I mean, circling back to the topic of this spaces, right? Like paying people is hard, and if you think that people are globally everywhere and can be students who don't have bank accounts, people can be in China where they use WeChat. Back then, had those people in Russia, Ukraine. There's other countries which are like, U.S. frowns upon doing work with, but there's really smart people there, and so it was a really kind of cumbersome problem that was not really solved. And so that's where we started looking at blockchain as a solution to our own kind of problem. Like, how can we build a better crowdsourcing system that is able to pay people around the world efficiently? And the answer was, well, there's no such platform because like the fees on Ethereum or Bitcoin were, bigger than what we were paying people for per task. And so at the same time, it was pretty complicated, even with Ethereum, to program that in the right way. And then onboarding users would have been like a challenge, even if they are pretty technical. And so that's where we kind of realized there's an opportunity here to solve this problem first. And then just to mention, in the community, somebody did build the crowdsourcing system. It's called NearCrowd, and it's been 1 to 2,000 daily active users pretty consistently for past year and a half, actually cranking data. And it's people from all over backgrounds, people who work on factories, people who work in services in Philippines, people who kind of some older generation as well, being able to participate because it is easy to onboard, it is easy to kind of use. It feels like Web 2, and they're able to earn some kind of small amounts of money, which add up if they work and end up, being able to pay for their family.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ilya, for just diving in more about the focused operations, the tech, the philosophy behind all this. I want to give a chance to have John speak here for a moment and just talk about a little bit how Opolis is building the future of work. What encouraged you to start Opolis, and maybe touch a little bit on ETH Denver. And yeah, go ahead and take the mic, John.
Well, I'll just give my egregious ETH Denver shill right now. If you haven't applied to come, you don't want to miss it. Go to ethdenver.com and put in your application as soon as you can. We're expecting somewhere between 20 and 30,000 people from over 110 countries, once again, airdropping into Denver. We've upgraded our venue space. We've got a much bigger facility. It's 500,000 square feet of cypherpunk bliss. So we've been working on this diligently for 6 months now. So this is pretty much a year-round activity now for the ETH Denver team. So get your application in. So I'll just leave that there and let you guys do what you want with it. Well, I guess I should also shill the fact that the day before ETH Denver goes to the main event, March 2nd, is Near Denver. So Near Denver is a one-day event that's happening at the main venue for ETH Denver. And there'll be a whole Near ecosystem summit happening. So you don't want to miss that either. Now, to your main question, Rachel, why did I start Opolis? Well, I've been in HR tech and employment systems for 20 years, and I've seen firsthand, I would say I'm pretty much the resident expert in understanding the social dynamics, anthropology of, history of work, as well as I've spent the time to understand the economic dynamics of work and how we relate in these social systems and how the games are incentivized, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, my extrapolation from all of that work was that we have a highly controlling system that doesn't actually optimize people's productivity, which, if we were to actually do that, you would see satisfaction rates in work be a lot higher, because productive people are typically very happy, and happy people are typically very productive. So it's, there's a lot of relational sort of intricacies there. But the point being is, when I look around and see statistics like 80% of people are unhappy in the work they do, you have to ask questions about, well, why is that? This is not just some isolated, disgruntled worker situation. This is full-blown systemic. Well, once you get down several layers of the onion, you realize that, being a paternalistic system, highly controlling, but then to understand why is it that way? Well, there's a lot of risk and cost that goes along with employment, and that creates lots of bureaucracy, which then comes along with control, which then sort of diminishes this human creativity. So there's a lot of things that impact the inputs and outputs. And in 2005, I said to a coworker of mine at the time in a startup that I was doing back then, I'm going to democratize employment. Now, I said it sort of very flippantly, and quite frankly, in hindsight, I have no idea what I meant. I didn't know what I was signing up for, really. I had no idea. But now that I'm knee deep and a mile wide in this thing, I understand what democratized employment means. And for me, to realize this sort of future of 1 billion users globally that are working fluidly, having the dynamic mobility that they want for freedom and flexibility in their lives, being able to own their data, their identity, their work choices. This is not going to be built through one single system. In fact, one team trying to build this entire stack would take billions of dollars in 20 years to do it in a centralized way. But in Web3, because of the incentive structures, because of the dynamic nature of the business, we have the ability to build it much more modularly. So we've decided at Opolis to focus on this employment component, which comes along with compliance and reporting and taxes and all the really boring stuff that nobody wants to actually do. We call these the necessary evils of our commercial lives, but nonetheless, we have to do it. And so we've created this system that actually allows people to plug in a way that makes sense for them. It's them choosing their own adventure with respect to their work, whatever DAOs they want to contribute to, from wherever they want to do it, however they want to do it, with whom they want to do it. They can do it on their terms, but it creates what I refer to as mutualistic relationships in our commercial lives. Instead of, quote, paternalistic employment, again, it moves to mutualism in a more fluid, dynamic way on a much broader scale than anything we could do in centralized organizations. So now what we're doing is we're embedding ourselves in different protocols and communities like Near that give your native contributors, Near contributors that is, the ability to pay and be paid in the Near native currencies without having to go through expensive exchanges and 7 layers of the conversion candy cane forest to like figure out how to bridge this, that, or the other. I mean, we're just eliminating complexities on a pretty broad scale that make this just a lot easier. So Rachel, to your point, in making things easier, one of the things I've always appreciated about the Near approach is really the focus on user experience. And I've been a big prognosticator of user experience since my beginnings in blockchain crypto back in 2016. That like when I first had my first MetaMask experience, I was like, there's no way anybody's gonna do any of this stuff at scale. Like my next door neighbor who knows nothing about crypto is never going to manage a private key. He's never going to do this or that. Like this is never going to go anywhere. So in combination with Near's tools and other projects in the Near ecosystem, you know, our goal is to really make work democratically available and formal employment democratically available to anyone, anywhere in the world. And we know it's a big, tall order, but, you know, so is getting 1 billion users into using crypto and its primitives. So like we share the same goal, the same vision, and we're here to enable it.
Totally agree. Thank you, John. And just touching back on the ease of use and the user experience, I think a big part of that is the technology behind Near too, like the delegated proof of stake consensus. And I also learned last night about this technology called Doomslug. So essentially, the way that the blocks communicate, it achieves faster finality with less communication. And, you know, I know we have Dennis up here today, who is an engineer over at Near. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about the tech. And also at Near SF Builder Day, we heard more about Nightshade as well. Is that something you're able to touch on, Dennis?
I can speak about these topics, but I think Ilya was around when these were implemented. So, and if I'm not mistaken, he was very well involved with the implementation of Doomslug. So, he's a better person to ask on this topic than I am.
Yeah, I can respond to some of this. Yeah, so there are two sides of this, right? We mentioned kind of simplicity a lot, and the reality of scaling is it's really kind of straightforward to scale, where you kind of making developers and users to figure out what to do, right? So you say like, well, you know, just launch more chains, and then, you know, maybe this will be the DeFi chain, this will be the gaming chain or whatever. And then users now need to figure out like, okay, where things are, where are these chains? Like, do they have tokens on them? Is there like tooling for this? Like all of these things. And we see that kind of proliferating through the space because it is a more straightforward approach, although obviously there's still a lot of technical work to make it work, to solving scaling. The kind of our background, right, and specifically my co-founder's background is in building sharded databases, right? And I'm coming from Google, where everything is extremely sharded. And we always kind of assume that you need to have a single blockchain that is able to increase its scale as more users and developers and projects are coming. And so that was always a design choice. And so what Nightshade is really trying to achieve is kind of present users and developers a single blockchain, and then underneath distribute and partition storage, transactions, execution in such a way that is able to handle kind of ever increasing load on the network. And so kind of fundamentally it's, you know, a sharding approach. But specifically it allows to synchronize all of the kind of shards within every block. And so you have communication between applications that's happening every block. You have kind of applications themselves running in parallel. And so you can have, you know, as many potentially, any application can potentially take on a full shard of capacity. And so we actually have right now in production running Aurora, which is on dedicated shard. So, you know, from perspective of whatever subnets, parachains, zones, etc., it's as if it's running on its own parachain subnet zone. But they didn't need to handle validators. They didn't need to do anything. They just deployed their smart contract, and they continue to deploy their smart contract and just sending mirror transactions. And users don't even know this is a separate chain outside of kind of different experience that you're doing. And so the idea is like any single application can potentially scale into a full-on, separate chain without needing to do literally anything, while the network can kind of continue rearranging where things go based on the demand. Now, not everything's implemented. The kind of final part of dynamic resharding is still a bit ways away. But generally, this, we're running with 4 shards. Aurora has a dedicated shard, and there's a governance process to kind of assign dedicated shards that can be developed by community. Now, with all that, we need fast blocks, right? Because our communication between applications is dependent on that. And so I think at some point we counted, we implemented 5 different consensuses. And the reality is there's a lot of problems with consensus, and the only thing that truly works is some form of tendermint that is actually works and proven to be right. So BFT consensus. And the problem is tendermint takes 2 rounds of communication before producing a block, which is final. And that just ends up being too slow, although people are trying to kind of reduce time there. And so what Doomslug its fundamental idea is, instead of block producers communicating with each other before producing block, you have block producer already sending block out, and in near case, sending parts of the kind of shards out to each other to provide data availability right away, while the approvals for this block, kind of the confirmation that other validators saw it, are coming already to next block producer. And so what this allows to do is pretty much pipeline kind of all of the communication that usually happens in a synchronous way in this more asynchronous way. And so in normal conditions, we achieve kind of finality, next block finalizes previous block, right? And then if there's some networking problem, that may take a little bit longer. But kind of you have this optimistic finality that kind of comes in pretty quickly. And that obviously allows to have this kind of synchronization point way quicker. And so we run with 1 second blocks. And so, you have this kind of optimistic finality on average with 2 plus seconds.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ilya. I want to give John a chance to talk a little bit more here, just about how, what the future of Opolis looks like, and how you envision us working with Near to empower users and give them the tools that they need to thrive through Opolis.
Yeah, this is where I think we should talk with, we should bring Dennis and Jordan into the mix here to talk a little bit more about activating the Near communities. What does this Opolis partnership actually mean? Where does it start? Where is it going? Why are we excited about it, etc.? So I'll give the abstract, and then, Dennis, Jordan, feel free to jump in. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. So Opolis is chain agnostic in a lot of respects, because we can implement various currencies for use. We can, we're not dependent on any one particular consensus mechanism or any particular technology. We're here to enable communities in the Near ecosystem to thrive. Now, one of the core elements that's needed is sort of normalcy. Now, what the hell is normalcy? Well, normalcy is, if you think about the traditional work world, what does a traditional job feel like? Well, you've got your security blankets around, you've got health insurance in the US, various other locations in the world, you've got your tax reporting and all the other kind of components that you need. So we're bringing that tool set to the various communities. Specifically, we're targeting DAO communities. Now, why DAO communities? Now, maybe Jordan, you can speak to this, but DAOs don't come with a lot of infrastructure or sophistication a lot of times. And what Opolis is doing is basically bringing that as a service to individual contributors who are participating in these DAO communities, so that the DAOs don't have to actually replicate this stuff themselves. I have something that I say often about DAOs doing that. And my caution to DAOs is the minute you start going down the road of doing a lot of the corporate things that typical corporate businesses do, like employing people, like reporting, like healthcare benefits, like all of that, you start to look like a lot of more of a corporation than you do a DAO. So like you got to be careful about what you're doing, even though business people doing business things makes a lot of sense. We've got to create new tool sets for DAOs to help them thrive and survive in the future. Jordan, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right that a lot of DAOs, when they get spun up, they don't have a lot of that traditional infrastructure in place, and even not a lot of like Web3 infrastructure. We see, DAOs popping up that don't even have a multi-sig or are kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And I think that is healthy in the respect that we don't exactly even know what DAOs are today. It's a very nascent space. People are figuring it out. So a lot of experimentation is needed. And with that, you need the flexibility of being able to kind of try out these different things without committing to anything. But there's some fundamentals that we recognize at AstroDAO that we think everybody should be able to have. And at the very core of that, that is, a treasury and then being able to manage it with governance. So those two things, when you hit AstroDAO, you can make a DAO in a minute if you just like click through the little wizard, and then you've got your wallet where you can send any kind of assets. And you've got your governance, which can be set up with multiple different kinds of groups and rules that give you the flexibility to start experimenting with those things and how you want to manage the DAO and engage with your community. And with all of that, in a future world where we have network states, we won't have to worry about things like taxes and governments, but that's not the world we live in today. So to meet things in the middle and to kind of push the current regulation forward, we do things like allowing people to associate their DAOs with legal entities. So that's part of the wizard that you go through on AstroDAO, is being able to say, hey, my DAO is established as an LLC or a collective, a nonprofit, whatever you want to do, right on the chain. And the way that works technically is just linking to that legal document. And then on the other side, your legal document refers back to your DAO contract. So that way you've got two-way binding and can have your DAO represented in the real world. Now, that doesn't solve problems like payroll and other things. So that's why partnering with Opolis on those things is so exciting, is to bring some of these more traditional needs to light and allowing DAOs to easily do these things, allowing people to step into the space and not be so afraid of like, oh, I'm going to lose health insurance or other things if I start working in this new way. And I think that's the really exciting thing here. We're talking about the future of work and making it the present of work. And on Astro, we've launched over 800 DAOs, and we have pretty good retention. Like we have over 200 monthly active DAOs. And I think the reason why we see so many people still active in DAOs, even in the middle of a crypto downturn, is that these are tools that are actually useful for people. It's solving problems, it's collectives of all kinds, it's nonprofits, it's investment groups. There's just a wide variety of people who find DAO infrastructure to be a fit for their organizations and their missions. And I think a lot of that, like, it off the bat, it seems like it's a lot of work to set these things up. You have to pave your own way, you've got to figure things out. But if you compare that initial cost of trying to figure things out and manage your own work and all these kind of like scary things about doing DAO work, and you compare that with the lifetime cost of not being in control of your finances, your sovereignty, and everything else that goes along with the systems that you're describing in patriarchy, um, I think a lot of people will realize that it's a much higher cost to not be sovereign, not think about their work and manage themselves. So that's what we're betting on, and so far we've seen a lot of fit with that and had a lot of great feedback. And yeah, really excited to be part of making the global economy human scale, and yeah, building this with y'all.
Jordan, I just want to just express my gratitude. We've spoken together on multiple panels now and events. And I just really love just what you're articulating, your message about DAOs. And, thinking back to our San Francisco meetup we did a couple months back, the one where we originally started out as a panel and then it turned into like kind of a family style discussion about DAOs. And we all sat in a circle and passed around a buff of corn to speak and, share our experience in Web3. And so pretty much one of the things that came up during that was we are really still figuring out what a DAO is. And I think that was Fran from Superfluid that said that. So to me, like the best definition or like what I've heard about DAOs that has clicked for me, one of my previous mentors, Sam Harrison from Harmony, he said a DAO is shared interest, shared assets, and shared responsibility. So you can't just like I've seen John post before. You can't just tack the name DAO onto a DAO and call it a DAO. Like it needs to operate, with shared interests, shared assets, and shared responsibility. So hearing that definition of a DAO is the one that's clicked for me the most. And just tying it back into Opolis, like what really made me interested in this project was working on DAOs, working full time in Web3 and earning in crypto. I experienced a lot of pain points in that. Like I did not have the safety net. I didn't have the access to benefits. I didn't even have a W-2 or proof of my income. And moving to the San Francisco Bay Area, it was extremely difficult. Like getting a place to live out here without being able to show proof of income is nearly impossible. So, like John said, just, Opolis helps to cover the necessary evils or, things that you need to thrive in life, to have the benefits, to like focus on your wellness and have the things that you need to do life. I think Opolis is really here to help provide that, not only to Near, like John said, we're essentially chain agnostic. Like we're here to support builders in Web3, people who are earning and want to take this plunge to work here full time. We offer them the tools that they need to thrive.
Yeah, do you mind if I put a punctuation on that, Rachel?
Sure.
And then I think we should hear from Dennis on some of this and just how, from a DevRel standpoint, maybe some of the pain points that he's hearing about as people are sort of maybe worried about the bear market, crypto winter, making that leap, coming over the fence, like getting to work full time in crypto. But I think the unbundling is really the key here. We all understand employment as something that corporations do for us, right? Like we choose to like tether ourselves to these entities. And what we're really doing is we're trading our time and attention for money, right? Our skills, time, and attention, and they're compensating us to do that. But they're arbitraging our time and attention for profit. Now, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not an anti-capitalist at all. In fact, I'm advocating for capitalism 2.0, which is more positive sum games instead of zero sum games or paternalistic games, mutualistic games. And this unbundling, you're going to see these sort of needed core infrastructural tools operate like public utilities. Now, I'm using the word public utility instead of protocol because it's more accessible to people to understand what it means. But a public utility is just something like, oh, imagine 10 years from now, it's like, hey, well, I'm quitting my W-2 job finally. Oh, yeah, you're one of the last ones. Well, what do I do? Well, just go plug into one of these systems. You can get your benefits and all the things that you need, all your social components that are typically the things that employers do for you, but these public utilities will do it for you through a community-based approach. And that way, the people that you're serving or who you're mutualistic working with, and notice I didn't say for, but I said with, they're not burdened with a bunch of responsibility and liability and risk and all of this stuff that typically creates. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you just cut off for a
Yeah,
second
it cut off for a second, but we can hear you now.
My AirPods died actually, so apologies for that. But yeah, no, I think the great unbundling is not just a thing, but it's gonna happen. It's inevitable. It's not just like we're over here talking about, wow, wouldn't this be cool? If you look at the trend of employment outside of Web3, forget Web3 echo chamber stuff for a minute. Like we're all here because we're either crypto curious or we're down the rabbit hole. But look at the Gen Z population. The youngest workers in the workforce are already working independently, over 50%. Now, why? What's the social driver for that? That's because they don't want the typical paternalistic, subjugated system. They're looking at their parents or their elders going, I don't want that life, burdened with that, they're not happy people. 80% of people are not happy in their work lives. How are you going to tell me that these people have real joy in their lives if more than half of their waking hours are spent doing something they don't like to do? So finding that integration as humans is going to be enabled by this unbundling. And I am thrilled to look forward to see what human creativity, human productivity, relationships, just the general human experience is going to look like, because we've created better, more egalitarian systems that actually enable us to have the work lives, the personal lives, the relational lives that we choose. And all of it's going to be based on these types of systems, these protocols and public utility infrastructures that actually reorganize the things that we're currently doing, but in a much more symmetrical, sustainable way. So, Dennis, do you want to talk about
Yeah.
your thoughts on sort of?
Yeah, so from for what I've observed so far, a couple of thoughts come up, and I'm gonna be frank. The market conditions aren't optimal, so
I,
I
I
do
think we all
notice a couple
agree
of
on
things
that.
going around. Yeah, and that, but I see the benefits of the transparency philosophy behind Web3. That for people that were working on some projects and then they had to drop those to find for something else, their portfolios are publicly visible, so they're able to back their experience with hard facts much easier than somebody would in an industry that had different philosophies, like we know in traditional industries. So they can't really, yeah, the best they can do is share a nice story. On the other hand, I noticed that the amount of hype projects is also much less. So if I speak to a developer that's building something, they're actually intending to finish it out, and they actually want to build something robust. As that was not always the case. Occasionally, I got like just people who are just walking and having a look around. They just want to try to interact with our APIs shortly, and then they'll move along, or they want to fork some repository and submit that to a hackathon, and then just be gone. While the ratio of I'd say quality submissions is far higher right now. So I suppose that's something the market also does. Um, uh, what I've observed also in the last cycle, and this also happens at Web2, is that people with skills get laid off, and they know they have these skills, and they get together with other ones that do, and then they build something they want. That's how companies, much of the larger Web2 companies that exist today, exist actually. So yeah, this is an exciting period for people who want to build something, address a real issue out there, to do exactly that. And I've seen a couple of them do these kinds of things, and they work remotely. These are people that interact with each other from across the globe, and they usually sometimes they use a DAO, other times they just have a Discord server. And but yeah, what DAOs make this possible for them to organize at an international scale. So yeah, I find it some exciting times right now. They are at times sad, but as such as change for everybody. It has its ups and downs, and chaos breeds opportunity, and sadness breeds anger, which then breeds action, and then yeah, better things come from that. So we'll see. I'm very much looking forward to these times and seeing what comes from it. But at the same time, I live with everybody who actually, like me, experiences these rough conditions.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for sharing your insight there. And something that you shared that stuck out to me, that I actually saw this at NearCon in Lisbon. You guys had a big banner or a neon sign that said "Build what users want." And I think something that I thought of when I saw that was also build what users need. Like we see all these hackathons and these projects come up, and I was a hackathon judge at ETH Toronto, and I saw some projects that were spun up, and I went to an event with Amber, and we were like, do these projects actually need to exist? Do people actually want this? Do people actually need this? And I think what I saw at NearCon was the project that won. I think it was Pomegranate. It was something that provided utility in the ecosystem. It was mindful of sustainability initiatives. And I really think that Near does a great job at building things that people want and people need, to create a user-friendly experience, to create a mindful experience, and to reduce the barrier of entry to Web3. I know we're coming up on the hour here, but there were also like two more things I wanted to touch on. Something I have always admired about Near is the mindfulness of sustainability. So, Ilya, if you're able to touch on like how Near is building a more sustainable future, I'd really love to hear about that. Oh, I think he disconnected. Yeah, if anybody up here, Dennis or Jordan, would like to touch on that. Oh,
Sure, yeah. As I was getting into the Near ecosystem, that was actually something that was really attractive to me was the fact that the Near Foundation itself is carbon neutral. And seeing that from the foundation also meant that that was the kind of culture that it attracted. So in the early days, saw a lot of NFT projects and initiatives around, ecosystem and green initiatives, and that has continued through the DAOs that have been active on Near. We have Open Forest Protocol, which is working on making it equitable to do tracking of reforestation.
40
We've got these,
acres.
yeah, and then Sisu DAO, which is more focused on the sea based carbon sequestering and things like that. So there's a really vibrant ecosystem of folks that are interested specifically in making sure that as we're doing all this compute, and that compute can be Web3 compute, it can be AI compute, it can be just running servers to keep the internet on. Just making sure that technology in general doesn't turn our world into a barren wasteland. And I think that the Web3 space gets a lot of heat for it, and any new technology like that, of course, there's going to be folks that are kind of reacting against it. But the fact is, technology is quite violent towards Mother Earth. So we got to make sure that we're doing our part to balance that out. And there's a
Exactly.
community that's doing that on Near. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Jordan. That was just beautifully put. And I think Near is very like focused on the future, right? If we want to onboard the next billion users, we need a planet that can sustain, the population. So I think that's a really beautiful thing that you guys are doing. Is just being mindful of that. And it's something that's really drawn me into the Near community, as well as the mindfulness initiatives as well. Just like having a space for meditation at NearCon in Lisbon. I really love that, and I really just vibed with everyone that was there, and love that you guys incorporate the mindfulness too. And that's something that is also done at ETH Denver. I know we have a Zen zone there, and I think that's so important when going to conferences, when working on Web3, to do things to avoid hitting burnout, because it's so easy to do in this space because we're all passionate, we all continue to show up every day. So being mindful of those things are really important. Um, I know we're getting to the end of the hour here, so I just want to give John and Ilya a chance just to talk about like the overall vision, like what you see for the future of Web3, how you see Near and Opolis, helping to build this future.
Ilya, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Sorry, my internet was lagging. I think the kind of there's two sides, right? One is Web3 is extremely needed, right? As John mentioned about Gen Z, but kind of overall, the people don't trust institutions anymore. Kind of it's at the lowest, right? We see kind of continuous collapse of any, kind of when people put trust into a single person or kind of a single institution as a as a conduit of something, right? And then we see kind of a meltdown of that happening. And so, including this platform potentially having issues right now, right? And so it's pretty clear that we need kind of to bring the kind of Web3 values that we all talk about, and truly provide the kind of experiences across the broad spectrum, right? That right now is dominated by, kind of centralized marketplaces and centralized providers. Now, the problem is Web3 has not delivered yet, right? The reality is, for example, FTX had more users than any app on any blockchain like that actually used it, which is really sad. And so this is kind of the point we should address, is that we need experiences that are not just, simple. This is obvious but also engaging and kind of attractive and known to people. And that is actually way harder, right? Harder bar. And so I think that's where I was, and like I'm planning to work on that. There's a lot of kind of people in the Near ecosystem and probably beyond that. But I see that kind of happening in next year, that we're going to have more engaging experiences on chain. We're going to have more, social, but also kind of interactive gaming, mini games, like all the things that kind of keep people coming back and really interacting with these things, instead of just kind of coming, buying a token and, not touching their wallet for a year. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing. And obviously within that, there will be more and more kind of pockets of different work and gigs and bounties, right? That's going to happen. And that's why Astra been, kind of pioneering the whole bounty system, which is like one of this, like, work to earn, however silly that sounds, is very much the experience that in again, talking about Gen Z, but like in general, people like that because it's very non kind of, you just come in, you do a little bit of work, you do a few things, and then, you get paid. And so like, this is where I see Opolis coming in and providing the backend for this, right? To make sure as people are transitioning to new model, there's more and more work done this way. People still, yeah, as Rachel mentioned, be able to rent an apartment to show the paycheck. So I think that's like, for me, kind of engaging experiences, more gig economy, gig jobs, like them becoming more and more prevalent, but also more kind of diverse, and then backing that up with, kind of technology and backend like Opolis to can allow people to still have security and documentation that they need for the real world.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ilya. And I want to pass the mic over to John. But before I do, I know we're coming up, or we're past the hour mark. I want to invite everyone to just go take a look at my pin tweet on my profile. And if you guys want to participate in our Learn and Earn bounty, we have launched a bounty on the AstroDAO platform. And if you guys click the link and click I'm interested, you can fill out the form. One of our membership success stewards will reach out to you if you are qualified to join Opolis. This is for our US and Canada based contributors. And at the bottom of the form, you'll see a section for your Near wallet address. So if you put that in, we're paying people out for our bounty $10 in Near. So if you guys want to earn a quick $10 in Near, bring more transactions over to Near, learn more about Opolis and how you can become a self-sovereign worker, go ahead and fill out the form. And I'll pass it over to John.
Yeah, thanks for that. So there's going to be some pretty big announcements that we do at Near Denver and at ETH Denver. So you don't want to miss that, as I mentioned in the very beginning. So I'll just bookend with that. The technical integration for Near with Opolis will go live in Q1. And then for those of you outside the US and in Canada, we are going to be expanding internationally. So just be patient. You can jump on like our wait list or join our community as a coalition member before you actually join as an employee member. But you can follow the path that Rachel mentioned. We can get you kind of plugged into the right place. Right now in the US is what's called open enrollment for healthcare insurance. This is the big giant PETA. Don't make me spell out the acronym that a lot of us in the US have to deal with, especially those of us working independently. So typically we can save people shopping the state exchanges 20 to 50% on your healthcare insurance, and it's better coverage. So in addition to all the other features and benefits like compliance, the W-2 pay stubs, payroll, crypto enabling, getting high quality healthcare in the US is very difficult. And because of our group methodologies, we're able to get it super cheap. And the community doesn't take any profit on that. It's all passed through cost just to provide the service to our community members. So I could go on for an hour just talking about the healthcare components of what decentralized employment could enable on a global scale, but we'll leave that for the next spaces. And for now, I just want to express my gratitude to the communities that are here. I mean, what I love about Web3 is that we are a giant community of communities. The modularity and mutualistic outcomes that we're building together in a positive sum game format are fascinating to me. Just the social value for me has been incredibly big. And I look forward to contributing to the next epoch of the billion users that we aim to get. So thank you very much, Rachel, for organizing. Thank you, Ilya. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Jordan. And I'll pass it back to you, Rachel.
Yeah, I think we are a part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And that's what keeps me showing up every day. Like what John has worked to build at Opolis, it really just lights me up every day. And I think this has the potential to help a lot of people.